Okay, so let's talk about chords. So I've already done a live hang where I talked about triads. Okay, so there's so standard triads. Now triads. Now when I say triads, if you look at a chord sheet, you're gonna have a chord like C. If you see C, that's a C major. If you see C and a little M, that's a C minor. So they're triads. If you see something like C major 7, C minor 7, C7, C minor 7 flat 5, they're seventh chords. Now, why would you want to learn chords? Because, you know, most of the time, you're going to be playing bass lines, right? Now, you obviously don't need to learn chords. It's not an essential thing for a bass player, but it can be incredibly useful, a thing to learn. I found that when I was at music college especially, learning all my chords on bass and actually working through them in a systemized way, it helped a lot. Because, of course, for pianists and things like that are used to chord progressions, and guitarists that play chords all the time, they look at chord progressions and they know exactly what it is, they know exactly what it sounds like, and, you know, it's great. So if they're studying harmony or anything like that, they are going to know what it sounds like. But if I said to you, what's a D major 7 chord sound like? You know, some of you might have a bit of an idea, but, you know, to know that it sounds like that, and you've got that seventh on the top maybe, you know, that kind of bittersweet sound, that's a major 7 chord. And if you've played loads of them, you know what that sounds like. Pianists, bang, they will know what that sounds like. Guitarists, bang, they know what that sounds like. As a bass player, you might know it as an arpeggio, but, you know, knowing it as an actual block chord is not invaluable, but it's very useful for a bass player. So I set about learning as many chords as I could. Now, obviously, there's going to be a bit of a limit on the number of notes you can have on a chord, because if you've only got a 4-string bass, you can only put a maximum of 4 notes in it, and most of the time you want it to be 3, because on a bass, it gets pretty muddy pretty quick. I mean, on a triad even, if I'm playing a triad here, a triad, you know, there's only 3 notes in it, but if I wanted to play like a G major 7 with all of the notes in it, well, I mean, what could I do? I could, you know, I'd have to do that. I mean, I could maybe try and stretch it. I mean, hard to do. So what you have to do is miss out notes. Now I'll get round to that. Okay, that's voicing. Okay, the how you distribute the notes on the instrument, that's voicing. Okay, think of voices in a choir, how you would distribute the notes of a chord. So first things first, you really want to know what the notes are going to be in there. Okay, so this is where actually knowing your arpeggios can come in handy first, you know, if you study chord tones. And I talked about all this in the in Saturday's live hang. So if you're having any issues with learning about chord tones, you can check out that. I've got a ton of lessons on YouTube dealing with arpeggios and chord tones. That's what you want to look up, how to create these arpeggios. And if you really want to deep dive into it, then, you know, there's the Chord Tone Essentials course over at TalkingBass. There's a 10th anniversary sale on at the moment, so that's the one to look for if you want to learn what these arpeggios are. But let's say that because I'm going to look at 7th chords today. Let's say that we take a C as a root note, and we look at a C major and a C minor. Well, there's a C major arpeggio, root, major 3rd, and that perfect 5th. I won't bore you with all the tertian harmony stuff. I did all that on Saturday. So there's the C major arpeggio. So you want to learn that. Then here's C minor. Okay, that's a root, a minor 3rd, and perfect 5th. Happy. Sad. Okay, there's your 2 core triads. Now, there's also an augmented and a diminished, which I talked about on Saturday, but today we'll just stick with those. Although I will bring the diminished in a minute. So then for a 7th chord, we just add a 7th onto the top. Now, that's done because it's a 3rd above the 5th, but don't worry about that for now. So for a C major 7, C, E, G, B. It's got that major 7th up on the top. Hence the name major 7 chord. So that'd be C, E, G, and B. Okay? So there I'm playing the 3rd fret of the A string, 2nd and 5th frets on the D string, and the 4th fret on the G string. C, E, G, B. You want to get to know the sound of that. Get it under your fingers. That's a C major 7. A dominant 7 chord, the chord symbol of which would be, let's say, C7. When you just see a 7, that's a dominant 7. Is a major triad, like we just played, but with the flat 7, the minor 7 on the top. So that would be C, E, G, and B flat. Okay, so C major 7, C7. The only difference, it's a major triad, but the only difference is that you've got a major 7 or a minor 7 on the top, right? Now, there's 4 main essential 7th chords to learn. There's actually 8 of them, but which I talked about on Saturday. But the 4 that you really want to focus on is the major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and minor 7 flat 5. So if we look at the minor 7, so that would be a minor triad. So C, E flat, and G. So that's 3rd fret and 6th fret on the A string there, and then the 5th fret on the D string. Sad sound. Okay. Remember, with an arpeggio, we're just playing a chord 1 note at a time. So, and then for a minor 7, we just add the minor 7th on the top. So that's going to be a B flat. This is where knowing your intervals comes in handy as well. So that's going to be the 3rd fret of the G string. So for a C minor 7, we've got C, E flat, G, and B flat. Then for a minor 7 flat 5, just take that arpeggio there and just drop that 5th down a half step down to G flat. So with the 4th fret of the D string. So we've got C, E flat, G flat, and then the B flat on the top. So that's actually a diminished triad with a minor 7th on the top. Okay, so that's the 4 that you want to learn. Okay, I'm not going to spend too long on those now, but they're the 4 arpeggios you want to learn. Major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and minor 7 flat 5. So C major 7, C7, C minor 7, and C minor 7 flat 5. Okay, and you want to be able to move them around. So for a major 7, you want to get to know that pattern, right? So that's your 4 essential arpeggios. So how do we turn those into chords? Well, like I said, the 4-note chords, so it's going to be a bit of a pain putting these on the 4-string bass. So what we want to do with at least 3 of these, for the major 7, the minor 7, and the dominant 7, is we're going to actually get rid of the 5th. If you play a chord, and you know the first note that you really want to get rid of that doesn't mean as much is the 5th. In a flat 5 chord or a sharp 5 chord, you've got to keep it in. But with a major 7, minor 7, or a dominant 7, you can take it out because it doesn't have any chord quality in there. Okay? So that's the 5th. Whereas a major 7 chord, that's the voicing we're going to use. You can hear it's got that. There's the arpeggio. It's still got that feel because it's got the 7th, which is that's the main note that's got all the colour in there. It's got the 3rd, so it's got the major quality, and we got the root note, so we know where we are. So that's a major 7. So that's what we're going to do for the first 3 chords. And the 7th chords are a lot easier to play on bass than triads, actually. So let's try those. So for a C major 7, what we're going to do is I'm going to play them up here. So we're going to take the C at the 15th fret of the A string. So it's that first fret marker after the 12th fret. So there's the C. Then remember what I said, we're going to use the 3rd and the 7th. So it's going to be E and B. So the E is going to be there at the 14th fret of the D string, and then the 7th is going to be up there at the the 16th fret of the G string. So it's just this little pattern here. So dead easy. So the second finger, the middle finger, takes the C at the 15th fret of the A string. The first finger takes the E there at the 14th fret of the D string, and then the third finger, the ring finger, takes the B up at the 16th fret of the G string. Okay, so that's the major 7 chord. Very easy voicing. These are really good for getting started with because it doesn't take that much in terms of the actual finger strength. And in terms of the plucking hand, as you can see, I've kind of got this free stroke kind of affair. So I'm plucking with these 3 fingers here. So I'm just resting the arm lightly on the body. I'm not pushing down or anything. I've just got it here. The hand's pretty much somewhere around the bridge, and then I'm just, you see the fingers there? I've got this inward motion with it. So the fingers actually come into the hand. You don't want to pluck them hard. It's just nice and soft. So you can arpeggiate it like that, or you can just pluck them all like that. And there you go. That is a C major 7. And it has a certain sound. It's got that kind of bittersweet sound. It's a major chord. It's a major triad, but it's got that 7th on the top. You can just hear that kind of melancholy 7th up on the top. Then, for a dominant 7, we can just take that same chord, that major 7, and remember what the difference was between the major 7 and the dominant 7. It was just the 7th was 1 fret lower. So all we've got to do is keep that pattern there. So we've got the C and the E, 15th fret A string, 14th fret on the D string, and I just bring that 3rd finger down to the 15th fret. So we've got this little triangle shape here. So the 3rd finger's on the 15th fret of the G string. And that is your... That's terrible sounding. So that's the kind of funky, bluesy kind of thing. So in a blues... Okay, so you'll know that sound. Okay, so that's the kind of sound that you get whenever you're hearing that, or that. That's it, okay? So if I was to play there as well. So that's the dominant 7. So we got the major 7, we got the dominant 7, and then for a minor 7, we can actually just drop that 3rd, the E, down to the E flat. So we've got the C, E flat, and B flat. So that's 2nd finger is taking the 15th fret of the A string again. The 1st finger is taking the E flat at the 13th fret of the D string, and then the 3rd finger is taking the B flat at the 15th fret of the G string. So again, easy little fingering. So that's a minor 7. Okay, and any of you that know anything about harmony or anything like that, you'll know that from a 2-5-1 in C. Okay, that's those 3 chords actually. There's that minor 7, okay? So again, you just want to move these around. So that is a minor 7. So you got the 3 chords there with a root note starting on the A string. Now, we can also play one of those chords with a root note starting on the E string, just to give us just so that we can stay in one position at any one time. So let's try these on a G, right? So again, we're going to get rid of that 5th, and we're going to use the G here as the root note at the 15th fret of the E string. For a major 7 chord, we're going to play the F sharp at the 16th fret of the D string, and then the B up at the well, what's that? The 16th fret of the G string. So it's the 16th fret on the D and G strings, but we've got that G down at the 15th fret of the E string. Now, you can play this in one or two ways, or several different ways actually. I'm using the 1st finger for the G there on the E string, and then I'm just barring with that 3rd finger for the top 2 notes, or you could probably use the 2nd finger and 3rd finger as well. Any way that you can to get it, or 3rd finger and 4th finger actually. But that's a G major 7. Then for a G7, we just drop that F sharp down to the 15th fret of the D string, and there you go. And the reason I'm doing this is to give us a nice gap between the E string and the D string so that we don't get it all muddied up. And it also means that if you're on here, let's say, and you want to drop down to a G7, you don't have to drop all the way down here. It's better for voice leading, so you can just stay. You can just stay in the same area. So that's a G7, and then for a G minor 7, it's just all 15th fret. So G, 15th fret of the E string, and then 15th fret on the D and G strings. So I'm using the 1st finger and then the 2nd finger and 3rd finger again. So that's the G minor 7. So we've got G major 7, G7, and G minor 7. So that's those 3 chords. Now, remember what I talked about earlier? It was the minor 7 flat 5. So what you can do with that is, let's say we're on C, you can actually just play. You can miss out the 3rd, okay? Because the flat 5 is going to have a lot of the sound here. So we can actually do this. So all I'm doing here is playing C, G flat, and B flat. So that's going to be 15th fret on the A string, 16th fret on the D string, and 15th fret on the G string. So I'm barring across with the first finger for the A string and the G string, and I'm just placing that second finger, on the D string, on that next fret up. So that's a C minor 7 flat 5, and then for the one starting on a G, what you can do is take that flat 5, play the same thing, but then take that 5th up the octave. So, or what was the other one? Yeah. So the other one that you can do is take the G and the D flat there, and then have the flat 7 up on the top. So that would be 15th fret on the E string, and then the second finger takes the 16th fret of the A string, and then you bar across with that first finger to take the B flat up on the G string. So that way we're actually missing out. What we're missing out there, we've got the 3rd and we've got the root. We're missing out the 7th. With the minor 7 flat 5, you gotta miss something out. So we're missing out either the flat 5 or the flat 3. So, the flat 7. Sorry. So that I think that one probably sounds nicer than that one. It depends what you want in the melody. So if I was on there, okay. So that's the 4 chords. Now I know that it'd be a lot better if I'd got like a bunch of tab on here and all that stuff, but really what I'm giving you here are just the basic principles for building them. So if you know what the arpeggios are and you know what the notes are based on that, you can actually work them out. That's what I did. So if you know that it's root 3rd and 7th, well, I mean, that's all I see, to be honest, when I'm playing these. I'm actually looking at the intervals in there. I'm thinking root 3rd and 7th. Same with that minor 7 flat 5 there, I'm thinking root, flat 5, and then the flat 3 on the top. So that's the 4 chords, the major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and minor 7 flat 5. And like I said, there are actually a bunch of other 7th chords that I talked about on Saturday, and you'll learn all about those in Chord Tone Essentials, and I do talk about those in Chords for Bass Guitar, that course as well. But for now, that's all you need. So the next thing that you need to do, once you've learned some of these chords, is to actually learn some chord progressions. So what you need to do is work out what the chords are in a key. So in a major key, so let's say they were in the key of C major. So obviously we're using a C major scale there. You can build chords on every step of that scale, okay? So I'm not going to bore you with all the tertian harmony thing with this, but basically we're building thirds, right? So one of the easiest ways to think of this, in terms of the arpeggios within there, is to think play a note, miss a note, play a note, miss a note, play a note, like that. So you ding, bong, right? So if you're in the key of C major there, and I want to build a chord on the root note, on the C, I play through that C major scale, I play the first note, I miss the second, which is D, I play the third, I miss the F, I play the G, I miss the A, I play the B. And what's that? It's a C major 7. So we know that the first chord in C major is C major 7, which is probably pretty obvious. But then, let's move on to the second note of C major. So we're still in C major, we're using the C major scale. Let's start on the D. So we've got the D, miss the E, play the F, miss the G, play the A, miss the, what do we miss? The B, play the C. So what chord is that? We've got the root, we've got the minor third, we've got the fifth, we've got the minor 7. It's a D minor 7, okay? And you can repeat this process through the whole of the C major scale. And what that gives you is chord 1, major 7, chord 2, minor 7, chord 3, minor 7, chord 4, major 7, chord 5, dominant 7, chord 6 is minor 7, and chord 7 is minor 7 flat 5. Hence the use of that minor 7 flat 5 in there. So you got those 7 chords. Now, when I just recited those, you probably thought, oh man, how do you remember that? Well, the easy way is to actually just think of well, learn chord progressions for a start. But you can think of chord 1, 4, and 5. They're your primary chords. So 1, 4, and 5. As triads, they're all major. Okay, it's a lot easier if you know your triads first. So chords 1, 4, and 5 are major. The rest of them are minor, apart from chord 7, which is always the odd one out. Chord 7 is always the weird one, which is diminished if it's a triad, and it's minor 7 flat 5 if you're using 7th chords. So what we've got is chord 1 is major 7, chord 4 is major 7, and then chord 5 is another bit of an odd one out. That's the dominant 7. It's the only dominant 7 chord in a key. So think 1 is major 7, 4 is major 7, 5 is 7, right? The rest of them, 2 is minor 7, 3 is minor 7, 6 is minor 7, and then you've got that odd one out is the 7, minor 7 flat 5. Okay, so that's how you can think of them. So it's just important to learn those primary chords, 1, 4, and 5. So when you work through those, if you were to just play them as arpeggios, you could play them up one string like this. So you play C major 7, then D minor 7. I'm doing all this in C. E minor 7, F major 7, G7, that dominant 7 there, A minor 7, and B minor 7 flat 5. And then we're back to C major. And you can hear how it's working up through the scale. Okay? So that is the chords in a major key, okay? So then what you can do is actually play them as chords. So instead of playing them as arpeggios, you get to hear them as block chords. So if I did exactly the same thing, I can work through C major 7, D minor 7, E minor 7, F major 7, which I could play up here, or I could play down here with the other voicing, then G7, A minor 7, B minor 7, flat 5, and back to C major 7. Let's take the E down here. Okay, so that's the chords in the major key, and it's the same series of chords, the same set of chords if you move them to a different key. So that order of major 7, minor 7, minor 7, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, minor 7, flat 5 is the same. I mean, it's just the root notes that change. So if we were in the key of G, okay, so first of all you could try the arpeggio. So G major 7, chord 2 would be A minor 7, chord 3 would be B minor 7, then chord 4 is C major 7, D7 for chord 5, E minor 7 for chord 6, and then F sharp minor 7 for chord 7, and then we're back to the G. So if I then played them as chords, G major 7, A minor 7, B minor 7, C major 7, D7, E minor 7, F sharp major minor 7 flat 5, and back to G major 7. So okay, so that's learning the set of chords. And you know, when you see people talk about the Nashville number system, that's what they're talking about. So, you know, I'm working through those chords, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not the Nashville number system. That isn't an invented thing. I mean, it goes back to classical harmony, where you use Roman numerals. So you'd see, you know, Roman I for 1, and II for 2, and III for 3, and IV for 4. Well, that's how you would normally analyze them. So that's the chords in a major key. You also have a set of chords in the minor key using the natural minor. So it's worth knowing that the minor, the natural minor, is the sixth mode of the major scale. So you basically play all of that same set of chords, but starting at chord 6. So if you think back to the chords of C major, if you start at chord 6, so A minor, so remember in C it was A minor, well, you just do that. You start at A and you work your way through. So chord 1 in A minor would be A minor 7, then chord 2 would be minor 7 flat 5, because that was chord 7 in C, okay? You just have to think like that. Then chord 3 is going to be C major 7, chord 4 is going to be D minor 7, then chord 5 is going to be E minor 7, and then what are we up to? Chord 6 is going to be is going to be F major 7, and then chord 7 is going to be G7, and then we're back to A minor 7. Okay, so that's how you work out the chords of a minor key. You just play the ones of the major key starting at number 6. Okay, now when you learn those chords of the minor key, you don't really want to be relating it back to the major key. It's too much to think about. You know, when I was doing that and going, oh, B minor 7 flat 5, that's chord 2 in A minor, so it was chord 7 in C major. You don't want to think like that. It's too much to think about. You just have to learn the series of chords. And again, the best way to do that is to think of the primary chords. Think 1, 4, and 5. So in A minor, for instance, they're all minor. So you got chord 1 is A minor, and then you're going to have chord 4 is going to be D minor, and chord 5 is going to be E minor. Okay, chord 2 is minor 7 flat 5. That's one of the most used applications for a minor 7 flat 5 is this chord 2 in a minor key. So in the key of A minor, that would be B minor 7 flat 5. And then you would have E and then back to A if you had a 2, 5, 1. So okay, and just before I move on with that, any of you that know anything about the harmonic minor scale, the reason a harmonic minor scale kind of exists is because when you're playing that, notice how when I played the E minor, so that was a 2, 5, 1, that 5 chord didn't really lead back into the A minor that well. So what you can do is turn it into either a major chord or a dominant 7, and it has more resolution. That's the harmonic minor scale. So in a minor key, you use your natural minor as your default minor scale, but then the harmonic minor is just a consequence of doing that, just turning that chord 5 into a major or dominant 7. People get confused with harmonic minors. They think that you're actually playing in the harmonic minor scale, and it's not. The harmonic minor is just a consequence of doing that, which is why you call it the harmonic minor harmony, okay? So, because it gives you that leading tone in, okay? So, once you've learned your chords in a key like this, just work through them. You just learn that order of them. And then you can start learning some basic chord progressions. So what you can do is, first of all, think, okay, well, let's go 1, 4, 5. You know what I said about the primary chords? They were 1, 4, and 5. That's why you get them all the time. You'll have heard people say, use the words 3-chord trick. You know, status quo, you know. I mean, a blues is a 3-chord trick. It's 1, 4, and 5, right? They're the most overly used chords in Western music. You can get by with 4 chords. 3 chords, 1, 4, and 5. You know, you can go a long way with those. So ordinarily, if you were just playing triads, I'd say practice moving between C major, F major, G major, and back to C. So okay, so that's using triads. Now, I've already covered those in a previous lesson, but what you can do is use 7th chords in the same way. So if we're using 1, 4, 5 in the key of C major, what are those chords, 1, 4, and 5? Well, it's going to be C, and then you're going to have F, that's chord 4, and G. So what were they? Major 7, C major 7, F major 7, and G7. There's that dominant 7, which leads you nicely back into C. So there's chord 1. There's F major. Maybe go back to C. Now let's try the G. You just play around. It's nice that moving from 1 to 4. mean, there's a song right there. You just play on those. And then if you really want to have more of an ending, so a perfect cadence, or what's also called an authentic cadence, which is 5-1, the most important chord progression in all of music, then you play the G7, and you can hear it coming back to rest. I mean, or land on the C major 7. You can play it as a C major triad if you want the full experience of that authentic cadence. But or just move between 1 and 5. Just arpeggiating. Okay. So that's the 4. That's the 1, 4, and 5. That's the first chords to get used to. Just go between 1 and 4, and then stick a 5 in when you want to. The other common chord progressions would be 2-5-1, where you use 2 instead of the 4, right? So that in C major that would be, I mean, you would call this a predominant chord. So chord 5 is the dominant chord. It's the dominant degree of the scale. If you're wondering where the term dominant 7 comes from, it's because of the scale degrees. In fact, I'll just quickly talk about this because people don't know this. I don't see anybody talking about this hardly ever. But one of the first things that you learn if you're doing like music theory grades or anything like that is that you learn what the names of the scale degrees are in a major key. This is just classical harmony, standard, elementary level music theory. So in C major, ordinarily you might think of those scale degrees as being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, they've actually got names, okay, in the classical world. So you've got the first degree of the scale is the tonic. Okay, so you've probably all heard that, when people say, oh, you're landing back on the tonic. There's the tonic. Now, the second degree is the supertonic. So just think super, bigger, it's higher. There it is, the supertonic. The third is the mediant. The 4 is the subdominant. 5 is the dominant. Then the 6th is the submediant, so it's like the mediant but below. And then you've got the 7th is the leading note. So tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, leading note. So that's basic harmony stuff that you have to learn if you're doing standard academic music theory grades. And it frustrates me that people don't teach that more often, because if you don't know that, then all this stuff about dominant to tonic, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, what you must be thinking, why is that called dominant? Why is that called tonic? You don't know about these other ones like supertonic and median. It's like, oh, that's the name you give it. Dominant 7 chord. Why is it called a dominant 7 chord? Is it because it's more dominant? You got the submissive first? What is it? But it's because of the names of the scale degrees. So the 5th degree is the dominant, and the reason it's called a dominant 7 chord is because it's the only chord in the key that has that makeup of the, it's the major with the -7 on the top. That is the only occurrence of that chord in the major key, hence the name dominant 7. So 5-1, dominant to tonic, is the authentic cadence. Okay, 2-5-1, that's D-7 is the chord 2. And then 5, we've got the G7, and then back to C major 7. So, and you might know that as a very common jazz chord progression, but you get it in lots of things. So, and actually what's happening there is that the chord 2 is the 5 of chord 5, and that's why it kind of moves along in a nice stepping stone motion. You'll get this a lot where you get a 5 of a 5 of a chord. So we've got 5 of 1, and then 2, 5. 2, you've got that 5 there, D to G. You're not modulating or anything. It's just within the key. You've got this 5 of 1, 5 of 1. So D-7 is the 5 of the 5, and you can hear how it's moving along. There's progression through it. Stepping stones back to the tonic. Okay, you're somewhere over here. If you think of it as a town, and you think of the or a kind of area, you've got your main city, which is the your home. You've got your home city, which is the chord 1, and then these other chords in the key are like the suburbs around there, okay? But you've got certain roads that lead back, and when you've got this D minor 7 to the G7 to the C major 7, it's like you're taking this nice smooth trip back. You know, you don't have to go through any swampland. You don't run into any trees. So you've got this D minor 7 to G7. Can you hear how that's got this? It all moves back to the tonic in a... And then if I take the 5 of the 2, so there's the D minor 7, well, what would the 5 of that be? The 5th above it is A, okay, so in the key of C major, you've got an A. It's an A minor 7. So I can then play 6, 2, 5, 1. Okay, so you can hear how it's doing that stepping stone thing. And eventually when I get, in fact, I'll play the triad at the end so it sounds really resolved. So it's all tension and leading back. Listen to it leading back, so. Okay, so it's all moving along, okay? And I could keep going. I could play the E minor 7 and then go back, so. 5 to 1, 5 to 1. B minor 7 flat 5. It's a little bit harder with that because of the harmonic rhythm, but it's that's how that works. So that's a 2-5-1, and this is why you can move 2 5s around. So you know you've got that. You could there. I turned the A minor 7 into an A7 to make it into a temporary 2-5-1. Don't worry about the theory of this too much. Oops. Okay, so we've got this stepping stone motion. So that's the 2-5, right? What else could we play? So, so there's the 1-6-2-5 that I just showed you. So we've got, that's a rhythm changes like I got rhythm. So you got chord 1 to chord 6, chord 2 to chord 5. Again, we've got that stepping stone motion. The other thing worth trying out is the minor 2-5-1. So remember what I said earlier? So if we're in the key of C minor and we're playing chord 1 as the C minor, so we're in C minor here, what kind of chord was chord 2? Well, it's not a minor 7, it's a minor 7 flat 5. That's what you use minor 7 flat 5s for, more than any other application, actually. Yes, it's a chord 7 in a major key, but you very rarely use it in a major key. It's more as a 2 in a minor key. So there you can hear it, D minor 7 flat 5, which sounds kind of dissonant. Bit dissonant. Then what's chord 5? Well, in a minor key, it would ordinarily be G minor 7. Remember what I said, in a minor key, it's normally chords 1, 4, and 5, those primary chords, they're minor. So chord 5 would be G minor 7, and then we're back to C minor. So that's a 2-5-1 in C minor. Well, there's a bunch of different... There's a few different ways of playing it. Again, notice how that G minor just doesn't seem to really cut the mustard when it comes to resolution. So that's why we make use of the harmonic minor. We then bring that chromatic note in there. We bring in the major in there, that B natural there, and we've got instant resolution. So listen to the difference between those. So D minor 7, flat 5, then G minor 7 to C minor 7. And now with the G7, loads more resolution. So that's what the harmonic minor scale is for. It's not for playing neoclassical shredding like Yngwie Malmsteen, you know, because that's what I used to think. I used to think, oh, great. You know. You know, it's all about classical. No, it's not. It's just that, you can do it with triads as well. You play a D diminished, let's say, G major to C minor. The harmonic minor is all about the harmony. It's about changing that chord 5 to a major or dominant chord to give it more resolution back. Okay? So that's some chord progressions to work on. Always look at your primary chords, 1, 4, and 5. So, like I said, in C major, and then the chord 5, you can do a lot with that. Just play that in different keys. So then maybe try in G major, chord 1, chord 4, C major 7. Gymnopody by Eric Satie. And then D7 for a for dominant chord in G major. So okay, so work on your primary chords. Add the 2 into the mix, so you've got a 2-5-1 going on. So, and then try that in different keys. You know, so in D major. Blah, blah, blah. Just trying it in different areas, and yeah, that's a good way of practicing your chords. And then when you're reading a chord progression, let's say you get the real book or something like that, you can actually hear what the chord progressions sound like, rather than just thinking, you know, just playing through the arpeggios. That's good practice, but there's you know, you can't beat playing it as actual chords, you know, to hear what the sound is. And like I said, listen to that major 7. Okay, and there's a bunch of other chords that you can play. This is just 4 of the different 7th chords, but yeah, that's chords. So like I said, if you really want to get into this, I absolutely deep dive into this in the Chords for Bass Guitar course over at the website. And like I said, it's 10th anniversary, 1 decade of Talking Bass. We've got the sale on, so if you want to have a go at some of these chords, I work through 2-note chords in that as well. So we actually work through, let's say that you're learning double stops, and because you can put double stops into a lot of bass lines. So you learn power chords, you learn thirds, and learn them within a key as well. You know, so that's in a... So you can play the thirds within a key, and you can do the same thing with your fifths as well. But you can kind of put, you can actually use them in bass lines. So I talk about double stops, and then the second module is all about the 7th chords and 6th chords, and blah, blah, blah. I just run through a load of different chords, 3-note voicings. And then in the 3rd module, I work through creating an arrangement with a melody and the whole bit. So you learn how to create a solo arrangement with the melody, the bass line, and the whole, you know, a chordal solo arrangement. So that's the Chords for Bass Guitar course. So if any of you are interested in learning chords, that's the way to go. Chord Tone Essentials is a different thing. That's the course where I talk about arpeggios. So I would say chord tone essentials is actually more important. That'll, you know, that applies to bass lines and fills and solos and all that stuff. That is my flagship course in terms of theory and stuff. So it's chord tone essentials. But chords for bass guitar, if you're into this, to playing all of these things, then yeah, chords for bass guitar is. I mean, I should have given them a different name really, because chord tone essentials sounds so much like chords for bass guitar, but you get the idea anyway. So yeah, so that's it. Just a bit of a taster of what you can do with all of that stuff. And I've also got a bunch of free lessons on YouTube showing you all of that stuff. Well, not all of that stuff. I go much further on the course, but you know, in the I think I've done 7th chords, I've done triads, I've done inversions. I've done a few things on YouTube showing you how to play them, augmented chords, diminished chords, all that stuff. So last few minutes, let's have a see what questions we've got. Aditya says major 7th chord sounds beautiful. Yeah, it does, absolutely. Any tips on building chord progressions with suitable chords? Well, I did that just after, so I'm guessing that you saw that. Major, minor, minor, major, dominant 7, minor, minor 7, flat 5. Yep. Sure, pretty well. Never heard anybody explain it like that. Thanks, Mark. Oh, there we go. And like I said, I've got a big blog post coming out tomorrow I've written it. I just need to finish it off. That's all about the history of talking bass. So it talks about me getting started playing, goes through all of that, and then eventually gets to talking bass and how I developed it and the whole story of it, all the trials and tribulations that went along with that. Again, I don't know if any of you have been with me for the whole 10 years since I started in 2013, but be cool if there is. In a minor key, the 6 is the new 1. It is, but it's best not to think about that because it gets confusing. Really, you want to be thinking in a minor key, you treat it as a minor key. You just think, okay, if you're in C minor, for instance, C is the tonic, and chord 2 is minor 7 flat 5. I wouldn't start relating it back, so thinking, okay, well, it's going to be chord 7 in C major. Don't do that. Just learn the chords. Learn the primary chords. I think 1, 4, and 5 are minor. So in C minor. In the key of C minor, you've got C minor, F minor, and G minor, and then it'll be G7 or G major if you use the harmonic minor. Tim says, I wasted so much time and money with teachers that didn't know or understand this. This is proper instructions. I'm sure that most people do if they're teachers. And you not always. I mean, to be fair, like I said, people don't even talk about the scale degrees thing with the tonic, supertonic, and all that, and which confuses me because I would have thought that most decent teachers would know that. But I think it's always worth explaining that because it just makes it so that you're not wondering, because as a student, you're naturally going to be inquisitive. You're going to be thinking, why is it called that? Why is that harmonic minor scale? Oh, no, why does the melodic minor scale go up different to down? And why, all these questions. And so it's always worth explaining it. But I think sometimes, actually, if you've not gone through sort of academic training, if you've not or read some books, then you might not know. I've read a lot of harmony textbooks. I mean, I obviously went through 5 years of music training. I went to music school and got a degree and all that stuff. So, you can't not do it there. But, you can read all this in books. I used to get out loads of classical harmony textbooks from the library. Harmony by Schoenberg, Harmony by Walter Piston. What else? Counterpoint by Walter Piston as well. And there's you see these harmony books. I don't like going with the modern jazz harmony ones too much. Like when you get somebody trying to show you harmony and they're giving you this sort of modern take on it. It's so much easier to just get classical textbooks because it's just so nuts and bolts and straightforward rather than trying to pretty it up in some ways. It's like facts, facts, facts. This is it. This is it. This is it. Do your exams. Get it right. That's more what it's like rather than, okay, well, if we explain it like this and explain it like that. I prefer the straight ahead way of, look, this is what it is. So, yeah. Losing my voice. Is a flat 7 from the minor scale, for example, a subtonic? Yes, it's a subtonic. You got it. It is. I don't know if that was a guess, but that is actually what it is. Will you record another breakdown of any Mark King's bass line soon? Maybe. Somebody asked me about Dune Tune, which I can't play offhand. I don't know it. I've never learned it. But yeah, I might learn that for it. I always forget all these things, like I do all these videos on YouTube. I can never remember them. I do that many of them. And, yeah, I remember a few things. Like it's always easy to remember. Even that's wrong, I think. Because I get so used to doing different... those kind of things that when you're like... I can't remember if that's Love Games or not. Oh, man. Etc. But I can never remember them. So, yeah, I might do one soon. Mark King only lives down the road, by the way. I'm on the Isle of Wight here, and He goes to the pub that's next door to my in-laws all the time. I won't tell you the name of it. I don't want to bug him, but yeah, he lives in. I won't tell you where he lives. I know where he lives. It's just down the road. Probably about, what is it? It's probably about half a mile from here, actually. Chords on Essentials is pure gold. Yeah. Chords for bass is a corker too. Yeah. Hi, Mark. Thanks for your detailed explanation. It's got a little further. Nice one. Thanks for that. So I'm going to get moving in a couple of minutes. So if you've got any last questions, just fire away quickly because I'm starving. I've not eaten anything since first thing this morning. It's 20 to 7 now, and I had a salad at 9:30 this morning, believe it or not, and I've not eaten since. Just this naff salad that I had. You've got avocado in it though, so I like that. That's not bad. Yeah, just fire away. And if not, then I'll get moving. And I'll be doing another live hang on Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday. I'm going to do them. So if you liked this one, I'll probably do one on practicing. I might do one on slapping as well, if you can stand me sitting there and playing slapping anymore. Oh, there you go. There's a salad dish. Yeah, so we'll do... Yeah, I'm going to do one about practice. I'm going to do one that's just about how to practice. I'll probably talk about the raise thing that I talk about on the website. And I'll do one on slap, and I might do one on... I had actually planned out some to do. I might do one on ear training, actually. Cool. All right, then. So if there's no more questions, I will get moving. I'll give it one more minute. So if you've got anything to ask, just fire away right now. And like I said, we've got the blog post coming out tomorrow that I've spent quite the last few days doing. That's the history of talking bass. So if you want to learn anything about, if you're interested in how I got started with all this thing and all of that, then that's going to be tomorrow. And then we'll have a video on Friday. I've still not decided what I'm going to do for the Friday video, so I need to think of something for that. Live hang on Monday, and remember we've got the 10th anniversary sale on, so if you're interested in this chord thing, go get that course. Oh man, Marty says, any tips on keeping fast string skipping grooves tight, muted all extra noise? Oh man, that's not really. I mean, it's just technique, basically. You just have to get better. That's a terrible answer, isn't it? But you know, it'd help if I actually had something to demonstrate. But fast string skipping grooves. I mean, you know, those kind of. It's you just have to get used to your finger picking. It's hard to say because it's all about just building up a basic foundation of your technique, making sure that your thumb is taking care of the muting. I mean, using muting in this hand as well so that everything's... But the most important thing is practice slow. That beyond everything. Just learn things slowly and build up speed very slowly, because the main thing that people have problems with is building up speed too quickly, and then everything gets messy. So if you've got messy playing, just focus on all of the fundamentals. Watch the technique lesson that I did on Monday, the live hang, where I talked about the basics of technique, and then it's just a case of applying it. Once you've got your actual technique, the actual foundations of it correct, so that you know how to maneuver the hands around, so that you've got a nice, you know, solid grounding, then the rest of it just comes. You don't need to. There's no technique. There's no tricks. There's no tricks to it. Like, oh, well, if you do this and do that, then you're going to be better at it. No, you just get something and you learn it. You learn it slow and you just build up speed. It's the same for anything. It doesn't matter what it is. You can have the craziest kind of... It's like you know, like when you learn something like, you know, like four-finger picking, when you're doing that kind of thing. So it's the dum, 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 dum. Now, I found that really difficult when I first started doing it, but... So as you're all I'm doing is actually and you just start slow, making sure that you play with exactly the same fingering every single time you play. And if you do that, you'll be fine. I know that when people ask questions like that, they often want some kind of hack or trick or tip for doing it. And it's like, no, if you've just got your foundations correct, that's what you want to work on, your actual fundamentals of technique. And then you just apply it, and then it just works. It's like if you were a classical musician and you're learning, I don't know, a piece by Chopin, right? Chopin. If you're learning a Chopin piece on piano, you're not going to be getting tips from somebody about how to, oh man, if you just do this and just do this. There might be little things, but most of that's going to be to do with expression anyway. If you've got your fundamentals right, then it's just a case of learning the notes and then just playing it slowly at a time, just trying to get them under your fingers, and then eventually just building up the speed. And that's it. Which bassists have been the most influential in your playing? I don't know. When I got started, it was Billy Sheehan and Stu Hamm, big style. I was just obsessed with those two. Steve Harris a little bit. I was into Iron Maiden. John Deacon, because I was a massive Queen fan. Mark King kind of became a bit of an influence at one point. But then after that, it ends up being people like Scott Tunis from Frank Zappa's band was quite an influence. Any of Frank Zappa's bass players. And also, who else? Pino Palladino, I guess. Jaco Pastorius. There you go. Everybody loves Jaco. Paul McCartney. Jaco Pastorius was, when I first heard Jaco, I was like, oh man, that's just ridiculous. And, you know, I think everybody feels the same. All you have to listen to is something like Come On, Come Over. And you just, that's it. You're hooked. It's just like, you know, with Rocco from Tower of Power, you just listen to those bass lines and you're like, oh man. And then you've got to start learning them. So Jaco was one of those game changers for me as well. And then you listen to his sort of jazz playing and that, and you're like, oh man, I've got a long road ahead. You know. Open Car, Porcupine Tree. Okay. I know the song. I don't know the bass line offhand. Have you seen the interview that I did with Colin Edwin? I'm quite good buddies with Colin. And I've met Nate Navarro that plays with him now. He's not playing with him at the moment. He's just had a bit of some bad news at home. But he's, Nate's amazing. He's unbelievable. I was dead surprised when Stephen Wilson called Nate for that gig. To be honest, when I saw that he weren't able to finish that tour, I was like, oh, what about me? I'm a massive Steve Wilson fan. But that said, I've not learned Open Car. I love the tune, but I've never actually listened to the bass line. So that's actually a good call. I will listen to Open Car and have a listen to the bass line. What kind of bass is this? It's an Ibanez SR1000. I bought it about 1992. There's a pink kind of version of it, and there's this one. Ignore the pickups. I had those fitted about 4 years ago by Martin Sims. They're Sims Super Quads. Originally, I had Ibanez pickups, and then I replaced those with EMGs. I mean, I've had this thing, how long is it now? 32 years or something like that. This has done some miles. Have you seen the Winery Dogs with Billy Sheehan? Obviously, yeah. I've not been to see him live, though. Have any plans on doing anything on reggae? It's part of my plan that's never really developed. Have you seen the Bob Marley video that I've done? Just put into YouTube, put Bob Marley Talking Bass, and there's a run through 5 bass lines. Okay, cool. Right, I will get moving, and it's been awesome seeing you all again. Remember, I'm going to be doing live hangs multiple days as well. I'm going to be doing Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday again next week. So I'll try doing them at different times just to see. I mean, we've not had as many in today as I did on Monday, but I'll try and advertise them a little bit better because I did this one like really late, and I know it's a problem because a lot of people are at work. But you know, something to do, isn't it? All right, everybody. I'll see you later.